Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Uh, Here we would like to present about ethics in research, and I'm Alfianti and my friend Evania Herinder and Fadila Istiqomah. So, for the introduction, I will explain it. Uh, in production ethics, the explanation about ethics is principle of guiding decision making and reconciling conflicting value. People may disagree on ethics because it is based on people's personal value system. What one person considers to be good or right may be considered bad or wrong by another person. Uh, You must accept the responsibility to behave ethically toward those who will be affected by your research. And ethic is study of proper action. Research ethic concern the responsibility of researchers to be honest and respectful to all individuals who may be affected by their research studies or their report of the study result. And uh, for human research ethic, the basic, what is human research? Human research is research conduct with people or research conduct about people and research dealing in their data or issue. Why is research ethic important? Because it is relation of respect for who's who take part in research. It ensures no unreasonable, unsafe or thoughtless demands are made by researchers. It ensures sufficient knowledge is shared by all concerned. It imposes a common standard in all the above respect. And then here I would like to explain about the uh, ethical principle guiding research. The first is respect for human dignity. Second is respect for free and informed consent. And the third is respect for privacy and confidentiality. And the fourth, respect for justice and inclusiveness. And the last is minimizing harm and maximizing benefit. And then for human dignity, that which is a cardinal principle. Second is basis of ethical obligation, and two essential components. And the last is the selection and achievement of morally acceptable ends. And consent. Consent is presumption that individuals have capacity and right to make free and informed decision. Uh, in research, dialogue process right duties requirement for free and informed consent by the research subject. Your research cannot proceed without consent. Consent must be maintained throughout. And then privacy and confidentiality. Uh, there are fundamental to human dignity. Second is standard protect the access control, dissemination of personal information, and help to protect mental and psychological integrity.
Okay, right now we are talking about ethical principle. This is according to Belmont report. They say that there are three principles essential to the ethical conduct of research with humans. The first is respect for persons, second, beneficence, and the last is justice. Respect for human dignity. These principles includes the right to self-determination and the right to full disclosure. When we're talking about the right to self-determination, so it means that prospective participants have the right to decide voluntarily whether to participate in the study without risking penalty or prejudicial treatments. And it also means that people have that right to ask questions, to refuse to give information, and also to withdraw from the study. And the right to full disclosure. This principle of respect for human dignity encompasses people's right to make informed, voluntary decision about study participations, which requires a full disclosure. Full disclosures here means that the research has fully described the nature of the study and the person's right to refuse participations, the researcher's responsibility and likely risks and benefits. And this is one of the most fundamental ethical principles in research is that of beneficence, which imposes duty on researchers to minimize harms and to maximize beneficence. This principle covers multiple dimensions. The first is the right to freedoms from harm and discomfort, and the right to protection from exploitations. For the right to freedoms from harm and discomfort, researchers have an obligation to avoid, prevent, or minimize harm in studies with humans. Harms and discomfort can take many forms, can be physical and then social or financial. Ethical researchers must use strategies to minimize all types of harm and discomforts, even ones that are temporary. And the right to protection from exploitation and involvement in a study should not place participants at a disadvantage or expose them to situations for which they have not been prepared. And participants need to be assured that their participation or information they might provide will not be used against them in any way. And the right for to protections from exploitations, for example, a person describing his or her economic circumstances to researchers should not be exposed to the risk of losing public health benefits, and a person reporting drug abuse should not fear exposure to criminal authorities. Like that. Okay, next we are talking about qualitative. In here, quantitative data in qualitative research. The risks of exploitations might become especially acute because the psychological distance between investigators and participants typically declines as the study progresses. On the other hand, qualitative researchers typically are in better position than quantitative researchers to do good, rather than just to avoid doing harm because of the close relationship they often develop with participants.
Okay, guys, now I will present you about the participants. So, first, what is participants? As we know, participants is the people who are the principal focus of the research, whom the research impacts, or concurrently or retrospectively. So, the procedures for protecting study participants. Now that we know we are familiar with the fundamental ethical principle for conducting research, so we need to understand the procedures researchers follow the adhere to them. It is these procedures that should be evaluated and critiquing the ethical aspects of a study. Uh, there is benefit assessment. So, one strategy that researchers use to protect participants is to conduct a risk benefit assessment, such as assessment is designed to determine whether the benefit of participating in a study are in line with the cost, with their financial, physical, emotional, or social, like whether the risk to benefit ratio is acceptable or not. So, the major potential benefit to participant, actually there are many points of this, but I will explain to you one by one. So the first is access to a potentially beneficial intervention that might otherwise be unavailable to them.
Second is comfort in being able to discuss their situation or problem with friendly objective person. Increased knowledge about themselves in their condition, either through opportunity for introspection and self-reflection, is through direct interaction with the researchers. Escape from the normal routine existence of being part of study. Satisfaction, the information they provide may help others with similar problems or condition. Direct monetary or material gain through stipends or other incentives. Physical harm, including unactivated side effect, physical discomfort, fatigue, or boredom, physiological or emotional distress resulting from self-disclosure, introspection, fear of the unknown, discomfort with strangers, fear of eventual repercussion, anger or embarrassment at the type of question being asked. uh, Social risks, such as the risk of stigma, adverse effect on personal relationship, loss of status, loss of loss of privacy, loss of time, monetary costs like for transportation, child care, time lost from work, or other. So the next is I will explain you about the research ethic. uh, Actually, there are many uh, area of focus of the research ethics. The first is harm. Second is informed consent. Third is confidentially. Fourth is deception. And report. The last is reporting results and plagiarism. Uh, the first is harm. As mentioned before, research should take every precaution to ensure the participants are not subjected to undue harm or stress. Harm and discomfort can take many forms, can be physical like injury, emotional like stress, social like loss of social support, or financial like loss of wage. Ethical, researchers must have strategies to minimize all types of harm and discomfort, even ones that are temporary. The next is about informed consent. Voluntary informed consent is essential for research involving human subject. According to the EAPA, informed consent should include first is description of the nature of the research. Second is statement that the research is voluntary and participant with can withdraw at any time. Identification of risks and benefits, description of how confidently will be protected, description of compensation, description of what into researchers will share with the participant, and the last is identification of who is responsible for research with contact information. The third, I guess, yeah, third is confidentially. Confidentially is all information collected in a research project should remain confidential. Participants should be assigned a HIPAA compliant code. Data should be locked away in a secure setting. Electronic database should also be protected. So, uh, the next is about the treatment of vulnerable groups. Uh, The treatment of vulnerable groups is the adhere of adhere to ethical standard is often straightforward. The rights of special vulnerable groups, however, may need to be protected through additional procedures and heightened sensitivity. Vulnerable subject might be incapable of living fully informed consent or may be at high risk or unintended side effect because of their circumstances. So they should pay particular attention to the ethical dimension of study when the people who are vulnerable are involved, as being vulnerable are the following. First, children legally and ethically. Second, children do not have the competence of give informed consent, and so the consent of children's parent is guardian school uh, should guardians should be obtained. However, it is appropriate, especially if the child at least 7 years of age, 7 years old, to obtain the child's assents, as well as assents refer to the child's affirmative agreement to participate. If the child is development mature enough to understand the basic of informed consent, evidence of respect for the child's right to self-determination. Okay, thank you very much for your nice pay attention. The last we say you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.